Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the news from SABA Satellite Channel from Arab. Here are tonight's top stories.
PLC member Al-Arada calls for protecting Yemen's heritage and reviving tourism.
Yemen condemns Iranian escalation, warns all options open to defend sovereignty.
And government advances 5-year strategy to tackle food insecurity.
Welcome back. We began tonight in Marib, where member of the Presidential Leadership Council and Marib Governor Sultan Al-Arada called for greater efforts to protect Yemen's cultural heritage and revive tourism as part of the country's recovery and reconstruction. During talks with Culture and Tourism Minister Muti' Damaj in Marib, Al-Arada stressed the importance of strengthening culture and tourism institutions, preserving national identity, and protecting Yemen's historic and archaeological sites. He said Yemen's rich cultural heritage and unique tourism potential should be harnessed to support economic development, attract investment, and showcase the country's ancient civilization to the world. Al-Arada also highlighted the international recognition of Marib's ancient landmarks as World Heritage Sites, saying this places greater responsibility on authorities to preserve them and expand cooperation with regional and international partners. For his part, Minister Muti' Damaj outlined plans to protect cultural heritage, rehabilitate archaeological and tourist sites, and strengthen Yemen's cultural presence internationally.
In Hadramaut, member of the Presidential Leadership Council and Hadramaut Governor Salim Al-Khambashi discussed expand and development cooperation with French Ambassador to Yemen Catherine Kerm-Kamoun. Al-Khambashi outlined the local authorities' key priorities and identified areas where French support could contribute to development and improve public services, in line with Hadramaut 2026-2030 strategic plan. The meeting also reviewed the ambassador's field visits to several facilities and sites in Al-Mukalla, aimed at assessing the governorate's needs and development priorities firsthand. Ambassador Kerm-Kamoun highlighted France's interest in supporting food security, entrepreneurship, and the empowerment of youth and women, alongside other priority sectors aimed at advancing economic and social development in Hadramaut.
In another meeting in Mukalla, Governor Salim Al-Khambashi discussed strengthening human rights protection with a delegation from the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. In the meeting, Al-Khambashi said the local authority is working to improve essential services, strengthen stability, and support judicial and security institutions in ways that protect human dignity and promote community security. He praised the role of the UN Human Rights Office in supporting fundamental rights and freedoms, and reaffirmed the commitment of the Presidential Leadership Council, the government, and Hadramaut's local authority to respecting human rights and upholding the rule of law. Al-Khambashi also stressed continued efforts to create an environment that protects rights and strengthens justice in accordance with Yemen's constitution, national laws, and relevant international conventions.
Meanwhile, member of the Presidential Leadership Council, Dr. Abdullah Al-Alimi, warned that Yemen is prepared to consider all options if diplomatic efforts fail, following Iran's latest violation of Yemeni sovereignty. Al-Alimi said the government called for a UN Security Council meeting to address Iran's blatant violation of Yemen's sovereignty. Speaking to Al-Arabi Al-Hadath, Dr. Al-Alimi said the use of an Iranian aircraft to transport a Houthi delegation from Sana'a to Tehran represented a direct challenge to international legitimacy and required clear condemnation from the international community. He stressed that the government would pursue peace, but warned that Yemen remains ready for every option, including military action if diplomatic efforts fail. Al-Alimi also reaffirmed that the government would use political, diplomatic, and, if necessary, military means to protect Yemen's sovereignty and national interests. He called on the international community to stand with the Yemeni government, warning that the Houthi threat is no longer confined to Yemen, but increasingly threatens regional and global interests.
And in a further warning over Iran's support to the Houthi terrorist militia, Information Minister says the threat goes far beyond conventional smuggling. In a statement, Al-Iryani said the proposed air route between Tehran and Sana'a could facilitate the movement of military and intelligence personnel and specialists in missiles, drones, and electronic warfare, while allowing the transfer of dual-use components, including electronic chips, communication systems, and guidance technology. Al-Iryani warned that such an air bridge would effectively guide Iran a secure and sustainable corridor into Yemen, bypassing restrictions on maritime smuggling networks and potentially undermining international sanctions. He said the consequences would extend beyond Yemen, threatening security in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, and the Gulf of Aden, as well as international trade and energy security. Al-Iryani called on the United Nations and the Security Council to take firm action to prevent civilian aviation from being used as cover for military support to the Houthis and ensure strict enforcement of relevant international sanctions.
Amid rising escalations and Houthi threats, military leadership reviewed the latest security and battlefield developments, focusing on strengthening coordination and maintaining the armed forces' readiness. Deputy Chief of the General Staff, Major General Ahmed al-Basr, chaired a meeting of senior defense officials to review the latest military and security developments and assess the readiness of Yemen's armed forces. The meeting brought together heads of military authorities and directors of defense ministry departments, with detailed briefings presented on the current security situation and developments on the ground. Major General Basr stressed the need for stronger coordination among military bodies, heightened readiness, and the efficient execution of assigned duties. He said the current stage requires intensified efforts and greater integration among military units and institutions to strengthen security and stability and maintain the preparedness of the armed forces.
In Humanitarian and Development Affairs, Minister of Social Affairs and Labour Mukhtar Al-Yafi called for stronger coordination and better targeting of humanitarian and social programs to ensure assistance reaches communities most in need. During talks in Aden with ITHRA Foundation, the minister reviewed the organization's activities in healthcare, disability support, child welfare, and humanitarian assistance. Al-Yafi stressed that projects should align with the government priorities and actual needs, calling for expanded interventions in underserved districts and governorates based on field assessments and prior coordination with the ministry. He also emphasized the need to avoid duplication, ensure a fair geographical distribution of projects, employ qualified specialists, and provide regular reports on implemented activities.
Also in the humanitarian context, Minister Mukhtar Al-Yafi discussed plans to develop a national roadmap for durable solutions for internally displaced people in Yemen. During talks in Aden with Najib Al-Saadi, head of the executive unit for the management of IDP camps, the two sides reviewed mechanisms for establishing an integrated national framework that clearly defines the roles and responsibilities of relevant government institutions. The proposed roadmap aims to improve coordination between humanitarian and development programs and ensure that interventions respond to the actual needs of displaced people and host communities, while aligning with national priorities. Minister Al-Yafi stressed the importance of stronger government coordination in managing displacement and developing sustainable solutions that strengthen the national response to one of Yemen's most pressing humanitarian challenges.
And in efforts to tackle one of Yemen's most pressing challenges, Food Security Steering Committee reviewed the National Food Security Strategy for 2026 to 2030 to coordinate government and international efforts to combat hunger, malnutrition, and growing pressure on livelihoods. The meeting in Aden was jointly chaired by Minister of Planning Afrah Azouba and Minister of Agriculture Salim Al-Suqatri. Dr. Azouba described food security as a cornerstone of social and economic stability, warning that further deterioration would increase malnutrition, place additional pressure on the healthcare system, and undermine human development. She said the new strategy provides a unified national vision and a comprehensive roadmap to guide the government and international partners through an integrated, multi-sector approach. For his part, Al-Suqatri said Yemen faces severe food security challenges driven by economic and humanitarian conditions, climate change, and resource scarcity. He called for stronger national coordination and deeper partnerships with donors and international organizations to translate the strategy into practical programs that improve food security and livelihoods.
And in regional developments, Yemen strongly condemned renewed Iranian attacks targeting Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Jordan, describing them as a blatant violation of international law and a dangerous escalation threatening regional security and stability. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said Iran's continued targeting of neighboring countries and threats to international navigation demonstrate a persistent pattern of aggression aimed at destabilizing the region and undermining peace and security. The ministry called for a firm international response to end the violations and reaffirmed its full solidarity with the affected countries, stressing that any threat to their security and stability also poses a direct threat to Yemen and the wider region.
In Marib, the education authorities launched the distribution of assistive devices to students with disabilities affected by displacement and other crises across 50 public schools. The initiative, funded by Education Cannot Wait and implemented through the Tamdeen Youth Foundation, covers schools in Marib City, Al Wadi and Harib districts. Marib education officials said the initiative will help strengthen inclusive education, reduce barriers facing students with disabilities, and limit school dropout.
Also in Marib, Deputy Governor Dr. Abdurrabbu Miftah discussed expanding humanitarian assistance in food and water with a visiting team from the British-based Blackburn organization. During the meeting, Miftah warned that humanitarian needs continue to rise amid worsening economic conditions, declining international funding, and continued forced displacement by the Houthi terrorist militia from areas under its control. Miftah reaffirmed the local authorities' commitment to facilitating humanitarian programs to support displaced families and host communities. The visiting team said it was assessing current needs and previously implemented projects while exploring opportunities to expand humanitarian interventions and secure funding from non-traditional donors.
Dr. Abdurrabbu Miftah also reviewed future humanitarian and peace-building programs with Yosaki Nagai, Executive Director of Accept International. Miftah called for greater support to help Marib prepare for the reception and reintegration of large numbers of detainees expected to be released under the Detainees Exchange Agreement, which the Houthi militia derailed just hours before implementation. He stressed the need for comprehensive rehabilitation programs covering healthcare, education, livelihoods, and social reintegration for released detainees and their families. For his part, Nagai reaffirmed the organization's commitment to expanding partnerships with Marib's local authorities and supporting conflict-affected communities' peace-building, rehabilitation, and reconstruction.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching.
Have a good time.